Is that good? Yes. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We know many of you have come from very far places, so we're excited to have you here and to welcome you and your students to UTM. My name is Veronica. I am the director for the International Education Center, and I have here with me Christina, the Assistant Director, International Student Supports, and Paramvir, one of our student staff, also known as one of our successful upper year students, that will share with you some of his experience and academic insight to help your students. So we've put together a presentation based on some of the most common questions we get from parents during this time of year. So we will share what we think is important with you, but we do want it to be a discussion. So we do have a time for questions at the end. Feel free to stop me or stop us as we go. We want this to be helpful for you, so let us know what information you need and we'll be happy to share it with you. With that, I forgot the clicker. So there we go. Okay, I'm going to get us started. One of the first questions we always get is, which campus is better, or is this a good campus for my student to be at? I can tell you from experience it is. And I also wanted to share with you that the University of Toronto is one university. So we have 3 campuses, but we all fall under the same umbrella. Your students will graduate with the same University of Toronto degree that any student at U of T will. The advantage for them is that they are at a smaller campus and a very tight community that is here to support them. I was at one point an international student here, and I can say from experience, by far the best choice was to come to one of the smaller campuses because of the people I met, because of the supports that I received, and because I'm still here today. So clearly it worked out. The second piece I wanted to share with you is that we have about 4,500 international students at this campus. About 1,200 of them are first-year students, and they come from 123 different countries. So really, it's a great opportunity to connect with others. They will find friends from their home countries or regions, and they will meet people from other places around the world as well. So it's a really unique piece that we like to bring up, especially to international parents, because your students as an international student are joining an international community that is here to welcome and support them. So with that, I will introduce you to the International Education Center, which, as the name would entail, is the place for international students. We do several different things, but our main core is to support the students that come from all over the world. We talk about international students as those that are fee-paying, but anyone that identifies as international can get support from us. We have a team, as you can see on the screen, of both professional and student staff like Paramvir that are here to help your students. I'll talk about his role or kind of the roles that students can have with us as well. But all that to say, there's at least 35 people at this campus dedicated specifically to international students. And then there's a whole community around us that help us to support students. So what does the International Education Center do? The first thing we do is support international students. You heard me talk about fee paying or not fee paying. We know that there are some students that come from places around the world. They may hold a Canadian passport, but maybe haven't lived in Canada before or haven't done so in recent years. That is what we mean when we say new to Canada student supports. We also have programs for success. Many of them are tailored specifically to international student needs, and many of them are there to connect international students to this campus, to Canada, and to each other. And then the third piece that we do that I will talk about at the end is global learning. Obviously, international students, by definition of being here, already having an international experience. However, they do have the opportunity to do up to 3 semesters abroad during the time that they're at U of T. So just kind of adding on opportunities for your students. With that kind of quick overview, because I do want to give us time for questions, I'm going to pass it on to Christina, who is going to talk about some of the key international student supports, from immigration to transition to health insurance.
Hi. So as Veronica mentioned already, we are supporting all the international students and new to Canada when it comes to their integration into Canada and at UTM. One of our main area is immigration advising. We have several immigration license advisors, including myself, who can support your students with any questions and any application they have, from study permit, visitor visas, work permits, and even permanent residency after they graduate. We are supporting the students from the time they receive the letter of admission, and up to 3 years after they graduate, so we can have a transition from everything they need to have ready during their stay in Canada, but also after they graduate here, to make sure that if they want to work and become permanent resident, we can support them on this pathway. All our services are free of charge, so they are covered by their tuition fee, so it's nothing to worry. You do not have to hire an agent or a consultant to deal with their permits and visas. We also support students with their transition into UTM and Canada, anything from getting a social insurance number, for example, or opening a bank account, or learning about what resources we have on campus. We also help students with their insurance coverage while they are students at UTM, and I will go in more details a little bit later. When it comes to immigration, there are some things that students, international students, need to keep in mind. First of all, they have to have a visa permit in order to start their school classes here. So you have to have a valid study permit in order to start courses, but also your study permit has to be valid during your duration of studies. Some students get a study permit for a limited duration because either their passport expires, but also because an officer decided that they will get 1 year, for example, and then will see if they want to extend it or not. We will help students with their application to extend their study permit if this is the case. But just keep in mind that your student's supposed to have a valid study permit during the duration of their studies, for all the duration of their studies. Also, international students don't need only a study permit to study in Canada. They also need to have a visitor visa or an ETA valid in order to be able to travel back and forth to Canada. So when they enter Canada, they will be asked to show 2 documents, the study permit, but also the visa or the ETA. We encounter sometimes issues when students extend a study permit that they forget to extend the visa or an ETA, and they will be stuck in the country they are visiting without being able to come back to Canada. So my suggestion is, if students visit you during Christmas holiday, winter holiday or summer, double check if they have their visas and permits valid to be able to come back safely and without any issue at the border. We also help students with any inquiries they have regarding work permits. So UTM has a co-op as part, for some students who are studying in specific programs. For this particular co-op, students need to have a specific work permit, a co-op work permit. We can help students with this type of work permits to make sure that they are allowed to do their co-op term. But also, as I mentioned before, we also cover permanent residency advising up to 3 years after they graduate. So it's not necessary for them to hire a lawyer or a consultant in order to help them with the permanent residency. We are here to help. We are the only campus that does this and covers students after graduation for permanent residency. Now, really, really important to know. Students have to keep some documents valid. First of all, a valid passport. You always need to have a passport valid in order to extend the visa, to extend the study permit. As I mentioned before, they have to have a valid study permit if they are studying in Canada. Also, a visitor visa or temporary resident visa, an ETA in order to travel back and forth. And also, make sure that they have both study permit and visa and ETA valid once they return to Canada. So if it's possible, check if your student has these permits and visas and passport valid, because it's really important for them to be able to continue studying here. Yep. So yeah, so some students, depending on the country of citizenship, you need a temporary resident visa. It's a sticker that they get in their passport. For students who are coming from visa-exempt countries, they need an ETA. The only students who do not need a visa or ETA are US citizens. Correct, yes. That is a temporary resident visa. Yeah, so ETA is, yes, ETA is just for students who are coming from countries that don't need a visa. It's one or the other, yes. Now, another very, very important thing for international students is maintaining full-time status and not taking breaks from their studies. For domestic students, this is not going to have any impact, but for international students, because they have condition attached to their study permit, it's really important to maintain full-time status, to allow them to be able to work on or off campus and apply for a post-graduation work permit after they finish their degree. And also to not take gaps in their studies, because any gap in their studies have implication regarding the validity of the study permit, ability to stay in Canada, ability to work, ability to apply for post-graduation work permit. So if they intend to drop to part-time or to take breaks in their studies, encourage them to come and see an immigration advisor so we can discuss the options they can take in order to not be affected by this. Now, as we said before, we care about our students. So students, international students, are covered while they are studying here and are enrolled in classes by insurance, health insurance. So we have two plans. One is the University Health Insurance Plan, UHIP, which is similar to OHIP plan, the health plan that Canadians and permanent residents living in Ontario have. And they have also a supplementary insurance plan that covers them anything that is outside of the UHIP. We have two hospitals close to the campus. One is Credit Valley Hospital and the Mississauga Hospital. It's really important to know because they deal with our students, and they, if you show your UHIP card, you do not need to pay for that. Usually you do not have to pay for the expenses and reimburse, claim them after. Also, we have a UTM Health and Counseling Center on campus. So students who need to see a doctor or a counseling person, they can come on campus. They don't need to leave the campus. And we also have campus safety on campus. Now, what is covered under UHIP coverage? Everything that students need, like doctor appointments, annual checks, surgeries, ambulance services, counseling, this is covered under the UHIP plan. All students are automatically enrolled in this plan, so they will receive an email from the insurer to be able to enroll in this plan, so they should check their email to make sure that they enroll in it. So these are the things that are covered under UHIP plan. What is not covered under UHIP plan, it's prescription of medication, for example, vision, eye examination, chiropractor, physio, for example, and dental care. These are, on the other hand, they are covered under the supplementary health insurance, which is provided by the student union, UTMSU. So the student will have to get their insurance plan to cover these things from the student union.
Yes.
So the Mississauga hospital,
Yes, it does. Okay, so you will see throughout this presentation, because we know you like to take pictures sometimes, some summary slides that highlight the things you can do to help your students. So that's what I'm going to go through now. The first one, we've said it 1,000 different ways. Please make sure that they have their immigration documents up to date. We say it over and over again because we know that the problems this can cause. We generally recommend or ask students that if their permit, their passport, or their entry visa is going to expire, they renew it at least 3 months in advance. When the students get their T card here at UTM specifically, we do record the end date of their study permit so that we can remind them, but we also ask you to help them stay on top of these things. The second one is to remind them to carry their health insurance cards with them. The UHIP card, it's an electronic card, so they just need their phones and they need to access it, just have them available with them. And then the extended health and dental plan. As Christina mentioned, what that does is allows them to access services without having to pay out of pocket. With UHIP, and you can see this yourselves on the UHIP website, there is a network of preferred vendors that UHIP has agreements with that will bill UHIP directly instead of billing the student. The two hospitals we mentioned are examples of that. Other pieces that they need, we call them basic needs. So getting their T card, students can get their T card today or throughout the upcoming week. We can help if they need to, but the CCIT building right across from here has the T-card office at UTM where your students can get their card pretty much on the spot, as long as they can show their study permit and a piece of ID. We also ask students and remind parents and supporters to have them update their emergency contact information on Acorn. Acorn is the platform that we use at U of T for student contact, I suppose. A lot of the time, our students forget to update the emergency contact information because it's not required. Very helpful to have, particularly if anything ever happens and we need to contact the emergency people, which are usually the people in this room, which is why we're sharing this with you. The other piece is helping them get a phone, a bank account, housing. I'm assuming if you're here, housing has already been secured for your phone, for their phone and their bank account. We don't necessarily recommend a particular provider. We always get asked this question. All of the cell phone providers are the same. All of the banks are the same. Whichever ones you choose are great. We don't have any bank branches on campus, so it makes truly no difference. However, all of them are within a 10 to 15 minute distance, even including transit. So whether that's TD, RBC, BMO, Scotiabank, they're all the same. They usually have student plans available to your students. What they need to get those accounts set up, they will need a piece of ID, usually a passport. They will also need proof of residence in Ontario. So if they're not living in residence, the lease agreement usually meets that requirement. If they are living in residence, they can get a proof of address letter from the residence staff that will show that they live here. With those two documents, usually a secondary piece of ID as well, they should be able to open the bank account, get their phone number, etc. Yes? Same thing. I will talk about the social insurance number in a second. Right? No, I will talk about it now. It's right here. Sorry. So one of the other things that we recommend students to get is an Ontario license or an Ontario ID. And if they're going to work, the social insurance number. So the social insurance number is not required. There's always confusion about this. If your students are not working, they don't actually need a social insurance number. If they are working, they do. Yes.
So then the next year, we must be planning to plan an account within the plan.
Okay.
So there are basically the basic account, the savings account and checking account.
Yes.
But we need to understand that for you to have a credit account. Now, credit card, there are some subscription that basically need a credit card to support.
Okay. So the question was, for those that couldn't hear, in order to open a bank account or a credit card, a social insurance number can be required. That depends on the bank. But if your students need a social insurance number, they can get it. They usually need the passport, the proof of ID.
And the study permit. Study permit has to have some special remarks on the bottom, and based on that, Service Canada representative can issue the SIN number. We have two SIN clinics happening on campus on September 18 and 19. We'll bring the Service Canada representatives here. They will be here during those 2 days to issue SIN numbers to international students. So if your student wants to get a SIN number, passport, study permit, and on these 2 days, they just have to come. It will be in front of the where the swimming pool is. There, they will be located and they will issue SIN numbers for students.
If they don't want to wait until then, because I understand sometimes parents have to fly back, you can go to a Service Ontario and get the social insurance number yourselves with your student. The same goes for the Service Ontario ID. I will be with you in a second. So the reason we recommend the Ontario license or the Ontario ID is because it gives you an identification in Canada. So instead of having the student run around with their passport to be able to get places, they can use the Ontario ID, which basically says who they are. It has a picture identification and it becomes their ID in Canada. Service Ontario provides or allows you to get this. The one thing that I will say is that Ontario doesn't allow you to have an Ontario ID and an Ontario license. You can have one or you can have the other. So choose what makes the most sense for your students. We generally recommend the Ontario ID. It's usually easier, but they definitely can get an Ontario license if they choose to. And if they do have an international license, there is a process for some of their experience to be counted out of country so that they can then bypass some of the tests. They will still have to do testing in Ontario to get the license, but It's not as complicated as it seems. The Ontario ID is a good thing to have to keep the passport at home safe and sound instead of carrying it with them all the time. Yes.
So the G card is not accepted as an ID.
No. It's accepted as an ID on the university grounds, and it will get you some discounts in some places. But when asked for ID, the T card doesn't suffice. Usually, it would be a passport or the Ontario ID or Ontario license.
So where would they get again the Ontario ID?
At the Service Ontario. So there's a government organization called Service Ontario. The closest one is on Erin Mills, Erindale Park, 15 minutes away from here. Opens on Tuesday. So Monday's a holiday here. Starting on Tuesday, they will be open. You can go in person and get it done. And like we said, the social insurance number we bring to the students to make their lives easier. There is a work fair, a Get Experience fair happening on September 18th and 19th. At that point, we bring the social insurance number then so that students can get it as well.
I would like also to add, tell your students to not carry their passport study permit with them all the time. Things are lost, things are stolen. You don't want to be in the situation you lost your permits, passport, and have to get all of these documents. Copies usually help everywhere, except if you need to get the SIN number, Ontario card and bags. But other than that, they don't need those.
Okay, the last documentation type piece is the UPass. So students at UTM get access to the Mississauga Transit, which is the bus system at Mississauga, well, for free. It's part of their fees. So they can get what we call a UPass from the student union, and that will get them access to all of the bus and transportation system. We also have a shuttle bus that connects them to St. George, the St. George campus downtown. So all of those pieces we've already thought about, the students already have access to. They just need to get those cards and access. All that to say, I've given you a lot of information. You don't have to remember all of it. The main core piece here, make sure the documents are up to date. If your students have questions, they can come see the International Education Center and we will help them. Yes.
So the reverse was on getting St. George.
Yes.
Runs over the weekend as well.
Yes. Yes. Mark is saying yes. So during the academic year, yes, Monday to Sunday, the schedule is different. If you Google UTM shuttle bus, it will give you all of the schedules. It usually runs every 30 minutes to an hour. During the weekend, it's a little bit less, but it's constantly running for class purposes.
Faster than go by the go lunch, right?
Depending on traffic, yes. So it's less expensive though, because they have to pay for the train. They don't have to pay for the shuttle bus. They've already paid for the shuttle bus.
So do they have a discount on the go lunch?
For students, unfortunately not. Yes,
Only free for the Mississauga, they line with it, right?
that's right. So only Mississauga Transit, because we live in Mississauga, and the shuttles. Okay? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So you heard me talk about at the beginning about some programs for success. We have many of them. I won't go through all of them, but I did want to highlight these four because they're very specific to this time of the transition for your students. The first one is the New to Canada Student Welcome, which is happening tomorrow from 9 to 12 for students specifically. As the name will tell you, it's a specific session for international students. Gives them an opportunity to learn information, to connect with us, and to connect with each other. We know one of the main things is helping them make friends. So this is the session specifically for them. They would have received an email on Thursday, giving them an invitation to this event and highlighting a couple of other events that are happening during orientation that are specific for international students. The second piece that I wanted to mention to all of you that, again, we've shared with your students is the International Student Mentorship Program. As the name will tell you, it's a program specific for international students, new international students. They get paired up with an upper year student like Paramvir, who has been through a similar experience to the one your students are going through now. They know what works, what doesn't, what to do, what not to do, and they're here to support your students. So we generally do one upper year mentor and 3 mentees so that they can also get to know each other. That program is running now, it's still open, and it runs for the first 6 weeks of classes so that they have the best supports during that crucial time. Once those 6 weeks are over, we go into the transition coaching program. So they've done orientation, they've done mentorship, they're now doing transition coaching. where they get paired up with a trained coach that can help them set up goals, meet their goals, understand academics, how to connect with their faculty, how to time manage, all of those skills that are needed for international students to be successful during their initial journey at UTM. And the last one that I always like to bring up is Canada A, which connects international students to UTM, to Mississauga, and to Canada. It's monthly events that happen specifically for international students that are meant to connect, provide opportunities for connection and learning. And they range from going to Niagara Falls on September 21st to Thanksgiving, to holiday pieces, to going to a Raptors game or a soccer game, basically opportunities to bring students together so that they can connect with each other and learn about Canada in the process. So like I said, there's many more, but I feel like these four are key, specifically for new international students that are starting their journey at UTM. One of the questions I heard when we were walking in is whether international students can be dons or can they work on campus. Yes, they can. We actually encourage it. We don't suggest it for the first year because we think that they have enough going on just adjusting to this new world. But applications for residence job, for jobs with International Education Center, with the Center for Student Engagement, so on and so forth, they usually come up towards the end of the calendar year. So between December, January, the jobs will go out for next year. They're a great opportunity. We work under what's called the work-study program, which allows students, as the name will tell you, to work and study. So we work around their academic schedules, and we give them an opportunity to work with us, to support other students, and also get training, get the skills they're going to need so that when they go to look for jobs post-graduation, they have Canadian experience. One of my main recommendations, again, from experience, is using the time during their undergraduate to help them get the experience they're going to need to build a network so that they can find jobs post-graduation and so that they can develop Canadian experience that they're going to need for those jobs. So if they're an international student, they have to be registered full-time, as Christina said. They have to have a valid study permit. Usually those study permits also allow for work on and off campus. I recommend on campus because I just think it's easier for the students, but they can also work off campus if they choose to. Again, if they have any questions, they are welcome to come and connect with us. Okay, so second summary slide, how can you help your student? The first piece now is really encourage them to participate in orientation. Sometimes it's intimidating, but honestly, it is one of the best opportunities for students to build connections and get to know the campus. You're here, so you're obviously already engaged. If your students can continue to engage with us throughout the next week, it runs until September 7th. There's something for everyone. If they don't know what to do or where to go, they just need to find the people in the blue shirts and we will help them. I talked about the International Student Mentorship Program, highly recommended, the coaching program, and then gaining experience while they are students. They can volunteer during their first year. It's a great way to start getting experience and start making connections. And then the other pieces that I always like to bring up to parents is reminding students to connect. They're obviously here for academics, that takes priority, but we know that those students that connect outside of the classroom are actually more successful academically. So really encourage them to seek out support, to find the clubs and groups that they are interested in, to connect with academic supports. We know that U of T is difficult. There's no secret there, but there are a lot of supports available for students. That includes some of the facilitated study groups that are available to them. There's teaching assistants and professors, obviously, that they can connect with. And there's also academic advisors that can help them map out their academic trajectory. I will then pass it on to Parambir, who's going to walk us through academic expectations in Canada based on his own experience.
Okay, just for some context, I'm in my third year and I'm studying accounting here at UTM. And I think it is very important to realize like there's difference in systems of education and what exactly is being expected from your student in that system. Just an example, when I came from India 3 years ago, I was kind of confused because back in India, we would have final exams at the end of the year. And those were the only ones that mattered. Whatever we did in the middle of the year, tests, maybe assignments or something, the grade did not count at all. I come here to UTM, well, there's assignments, there are lectures, everything matters. Small quizzes, those matters. It took me a while to adapt to that, but it made me realize the importance of understanding what exactly I need to do to meet the academic expectations here at UTM. So what exactly does your student need to do? Well, they're going to go to lectures where they will learn the theories and concepts of whatever they're studying. They're going to go to tutorials where they will apply those concepts. Can everyone at the back hear me now? Are we good? Yeah? Okay. So, as I said, they will go to lectures to learn concepts, and then they will go to tutorials to apply those concepts in real life scenarios. So let's take an example. Let's say I'm studying algebra. I'm going to go to a math lecture. I'm going to learn the concepts of algebra there. And I'm going to go to a tutorial, and there I would do practice problems to learn how algebra works and solidify the concept. And then we have labs as well for subjects like chemistry, bio, or maybe labs where you need computers. So you go in there, do experiments and work out scenarios. Is that it? No. Students are expected to complete all those demands mentioned. They have to do assignments, midterms, exams, group work, reports. So there's a lot of demands. How does one go about it? We suggest active participation, critical thinking, and independent study. Do all these three, and your students should be in here for a good time here at UTM. They can navigate through their classes and everything if they follow all these three. But other than that, we suggest approximately 3 hours of independent study for every hour of class. So it is important to understand what exactly is being expected from you, but it is also important to understand what sort of degree is your student doing. I have a bunch of friends here at UTM who already graduated, and they were like, well, I graduated, I have this degree, but what am I going to do with this now? So it is very important to realize what you're doing, why you're doing, and what you're going to do with it. How does it work? Well, students are going to come to UTM, they're going to choose a program of study. For me personally, I chose accounting, and then I had a bunch of options. I could take a specialist, I could do a major, or I could do a minor. The difference is usually that in a specialist, you would do more credits dedicated to the subject you're studying, as opposed to a major or minor. And then it's not like you could only do one of those. You can make multiple combinations. So these are like the average pathways students usually choose. So something like they could do one specialist, they could do two majors, they could do one major and two minors. Me personally, I'm doing one specialist and one major, that's accounting and economics. And then that's not it. When students come here to UTM, they're also expected to complete minimum 6 of 300 to 400 level courses. So we have 100 level courses, 200, 300, and 400. They're expected to complete 6 credits from those 300 to 400 level courses. And that means either 12 half-year courses or 6 full-year courses. And other than that, we at UTM try to emphasize the fact that students need a broader and diverse experience when they come here to study. So let's say I'm coming here to study accounting. Would I be studying only accounting at UTM? The answer is no. I would be studying a wide range of other subjects because I need to satisfy my breadth requirements. So I need to do 1 credit in humanities, 1 in social sciences, 1 in science. This kind of ensures that I get a broader experience while I'm studying here at UTM, and then gain knowledge in subjects that can help me build upon as a person, and build upon my career. So yeah. And then you have all that. You have understanding your degree, understanding the academic expectations. Let's say you understand both of these. How will you succeed here at UTM? First point, as I mentioned above, critical thinking, independent study, and active participation. But other than that, academic integrity. I cannot stress this enough, how important academic integrity is for UTM students. It should be like the priority of every student here at UTM to uphold academic integrity in every way possible. Well, what happens if you break it? There's going to be consequences. And how could you break it? Cheating on a test you're not supposed to, collaborating with people on an assignment where you're supposed to work alone, using a cell phone in a test. And then there's multiple ways you could do so. So what exactly happens? You could get a 0 on a test, you could get 0 on the course, or maybe in suspension from the university. The more you go down this road, the worse it gets. So just say you need to be make sure that it is a priority that you uphold academic integrity. And then it is an important fact that you need to consider about plagiarism. students usually, there's a lot of scenarios where students go like, Professor, I don't think this is plagiarism. The professor's like, yes, this does count as plagiarism. So it is important to understand what plagiarism exactly is, because you don't want your student to be in a scenario where they're like, well, I thought this isn't copying, but the professor says this is copying, and now they're stuck with an academic offense. So that's that. But we have a bunch of resources at UTM that students can use. So we have the Robert Gillespie Academic Skills Center, which can help students with writing essays or maybe build up skills that can help them with their degree. We also have academic advisors who can help students navigate through their degree here at UTM. They can provide advices regarding courses, how to take them, when to take them, and how to build a timetable as well. Then we have program plans, which I'm going to expand on right now. So this is what kind of a program plan looks like. As you can see, it's for forensic science, and it's the major. Remember, I said specialist, major, minor. So it's for the major. The first row, you could see it says plan your academics. It kind of mentions what courses you're supposed to take throughout this major, the mandatory and the prerequisite ones. Same thing. So if a student were to go through forensic science major, they would have to do all the courses mentioned on the top row because those are mandatory. But other than that, it has a bunch of other tools you could use: building skills, building a network, building a global mindset, and planning for your future. Consider this like a template that a student could use to navigate through their degree at UTM. And as I mentioned, pair this with the help of an academic advisor. They are in here for a good time and a successful time here at UTM. Let's move on. So that's not all. We have a lot more resources for smart planning and academic planning here at UTM. Academic calendar, what does that stand for? It kind of mentions the courses that we have here at UTM. It provides you information regarding the courses, the breadth requirement. As I mentioned, you have to do one in humanities, one in social science, one in sciences. It kind of tells you which requirement you would satisfy if you were to take this course. And then important information about the course. We have Degree Explorer. Degree Explorer is kind of one of the most important tools there out there. So it can help you track the progress of your degree. So let's say I'm an accounting student. If I were to open Degree Explorer today, it's going to show me how many mandatory courses I've already completed, how many more I need to take, what's the progress, how much of my degree have I completed, 50%, 60%, and then what else requirements I need to satisfy. Consider this as a tracker for your degree that a student can use. CGPA calculator, grade calculator, pretty self-explanatory. And then it helps you keep a track of your grade, bring up expected grades or so you can make targets. Timetable builder, it is an important tool that students can use. So let's say a student is planning out, I'm going to take these courses, but you cannot enroll on those courses yet. So you cannot see the timetable on Acon. Timetable builder is going to help you plan out how your classes will look like. And it's kind of an important schedule that you as parents can use with your students to help them build their schedule. So let's say you don't want your student to be in a situation where they're like, either they have two classes clashing, or let's say your child doesn't want to wake up at 9 a.m. and they end up taking 9 a.m. classes. So yeah. And then important dates. Well, it kind of mentions academic and financial dates. So for students, it kind of lists like deadlines for course dropping, course withdrawal, taking courses, all that stuff. And for parents, it is kind of important as well, because I'm assuming some of the parents here would be undertaking financial obligations for their children. So the important dates is important for you as well, because it mentions financial deadlines as well, and by when you're supposed to meet those obligations. So we have a bunch of resources here at UTM that students and parents both can use to work together and make sure that your student here is having a good time at UTM. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so over to the last slide before we pass it on to Sveta, who will give you more information on academics and finances. I did want to mention learning abroad. Like I said, your students are obviously already learning abroad, but they can do more. So let me talk about two programs very quickly. One is UTM Abroad, as the name will tell you, it's UTM specific. It allows students to take a course at UTM and travel abroad with their faculty and classmates as part of the course. So if I am taking a biology course over the fall semester, I will travel abroad during the October reading break to Peru to learn about the medicine system over there, because I would like to be a doctor in the future and I want this hands-on experience. They then bring back that experience that they've had abroad and continue their courses here at UTM. The second option is exchange. So UTM abroad is short term. Exchange is longer term. It can be a semester, it can be a year, it could be up to 3 semesters that your students could do at 1 or 3 different locations around the world. All of them as part of their U of T degree. So we obviously have agreements in place that allow students to go abroad, take the courses that they want to take at a different location, and then bring them back to their degree. So something future thinking, we've given you a lot of right now information. This is something for you to think about with your students as they continue throughout their academic career. Few reminders based on what we've talked about. So Paramveer talked about some of the important dates. Orientation, you're here, so you know this one, it runs until September 7th. The International to Canada Student Welcome that I mentioned is happening tomorrow. The first day of classes is on Tuesday. We talked about the social insurance number clinic at the beginning on the 18th and the 19th. And speaking of important deadlines, as Paramveer was saying, September 16th is the last day for students to add or drop courses. Also the last day to get refunds on those courses. So between now and then, they can make some changes. On the 16th, it basically locks them into their schedule for the fall.